Hey guys, it's Luke again with Motor Minds, and today we are in a 2012 Hyundai Accent. Now, the Hyundai Accent is basically Hyundai's entry into the subcompact segment, which honestly isn't a very big segment here in the US. Over here in the States, we like our big fat SUVs, we like large sedans, we like minivans, we like basically anything that's not small, because quite frankly, our gas prices aren't high enough for them to be very appealing. So cars like the Accent aren't that popular, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't buy one, and there are many reasons for that, which I am going to discuss in this review. So the Accent, it is a much better car than you might initially think. It is small, and it has a sticker price of around, I think the 2012 started around $14,000. That's what we paid for this car. And quite frankly, this car provides a whole lot of value for money, which you really wouldn't be expecting for a car in this price range and in this class. So let's get started off with the styling as usual. So this car it's very gender neutral, and what I mean by that is you could really make it look like whatever you want. This car here is my mom's car and will soon be my sister's car. And it is baby blue, and it is super femme. But one of my friends actually has this car in red. I know some people have it in black. I was actually looking at getting one of these in black, and it looks a whole lot different depending on what color you put in it. And obviously, if you get the standard 16-inch steel wheels, it looks super femme, but this has the upgraded alloys, which are much better, and it makes the car look really nice. The front end, it's kind of part of Hyundai's old design because this car hasn't been refreshed with the rest of Hyundai's lineup, so it still kind of harks back to the previous generation of Hyundais, like the old Sonata, the old Elantra, kind of harks back to that design. So the front end isn't quite as upscale looking as some of the new Hyundais. It's a bit more, it's not as conservative as the newer Hyundais. Hyundais seem to go down more conservative, more upscale, stylish look, which the new Accent, I've seen pictures of that definitely has that, but this car not so much. It's a bit more out there, a bit more fun looking. Move on to the sides. There's a really nice line that runs along the middle of the doors and flows through the door handles. It makes it look really nice, but other than that, not a whole lot going on. It's a generally low roof line, but inside the car, the roof actually feels pretty high, despite the fact that it has a low roof line. And then moving on to the back, you can obviously configure this car in a hatchback or a sedan. This one's a sedan. And you have a deck lid, opens up to a really roomy trunk. Taillights, they're your standard taillights. Honestly, there's not a whole lot going on in the back end of this car. It's not super sleek in the rear, but it's versatile. You can actually fit a lot of stuff in the trunk, and the trunk opens nice and wide, and it gets everything done. So let's move on to the powertrain of this car. So this car has a 137 horsepower, 1.6 liter GDI engine that's from Hyundai. Now, obviously, this is the same GDI engine that they do a turbo version of in the Veloster Turbo and the new Elantra GT. It's a very good engine, but even the non-turbo version of it is very nice. It's very smooth and honestly provides pretty good power. So 137 horsepower may not seem like a lot, but in a car that's this light, it's actually pretty quick. So it does 0 to 60 in about 8 seconds, which honestly, well, that's not, obviously it's not a rocket ship, but that's pretty good for a subcompact. Like a lot of those cars are over 10 seconds in their 0 to 60 times. So this thing actually feels quite lively. And you can mate that engine to a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic like we have here. I haven't driven the manual, but I've seen one in the showroom and fooled around with the shifter. It seems pretty nice, a little bit rubbery, but obviously I can't really review that since I haven't driven that version of the car. This automatic, it's very, very smooth, but one thing I've noticed is that it tends to hold gears pretty long. Now, you can take that as a good thing or a bad thing. It's good because it allows you to get into the engine's power band, which makes the car quicker, but I've noticed that when I'm not even driving that aggressively, it still tends to hold gears longer than I would like. Like, it's really hard to get going without revving the engine to like 3 grand, intentionally or non-intentionally. I just wish it would shift quicker sometimes. I mean, not quicker, but sooner when I'm not driving that aggressively. But that's a very minor thing. Overall, the transmission is silky smooth. You don't even feel the shifts. And they're not super quick, but they do flow very nicely. It's almost kind of creamy in the way that it shifts gears. So other than that, this powertrain combines 27 city and 37 highway for gas mileage. So let's check out the handling. Now, this car, obviously, it's no sports sedan. It's a little Hyundai Accent, but honestly, it doesn't handle that bad. There is very little body roll. Now, it corners nice and flat, and the steering is actually pretty good. On center at low speeds, it doesn't really have a lot of feedback. It's pretty slow to respond and almost kind of, I wouldn't say rubbery, but kind of mushy on center when you're at low speeds. But once you start going past, like, I don't know, 40 miles an hour or so, 30, 40 miles an hour, it really tightens up a lot, especially as you dial in lock into a corner. And you combine that with the flat ride without any body lean at all, it actually handles really well once you're at speed. It's just a little bit of that slow steering when you're going at low speeds that can be a little bit annoying. But to a lot of the market, that's probably a good thing, because when you're driving this thing around town, you want to have steering that's going to be super easy to just turn and forget about, you know? So I actually like it for that, so I can be booking on a back road and it'll feel great. But when you're at a low speed, it is easy to drive. So obviously, this car doesn't drive as nice as like the Focus, for instance, but of course it's not tuned for that. It's not meant for that kind of driving, but for a car in this class, I like the driving a lot. And what I do like is the fact that when you do hit bumps, the whole car doesn't shake and rattle. It feels very tied down and very controlled, which is something that you don't really see that much in a car of this size, because when you have a car that's this small, it's very easy for any imperfection of the road to be transmitted throughout the chassis. And this car tries to hide that as well as possible. It feels like it rides like a much bigger car than it is, which is nice. I really like it. And like I was saying, the ride has a high quality in just the way that it feels when you go over bumps. No squeaks, no rattles, no nothing. It's very sublime, even though it might not be the smoothest ride out there. So let's move on to the interior. Now, this car, we paid $14,000 for it, like I said before, and it has no features. It doesn't have cruise control. It doesn't have controls on the steering wheel. It doesn't even have remote entry. You actually have to take a key and stick it in the door to unlock the car, which is something I haven't seen like ever. But it does have electric windows if you're expecting to see wind downs after hearing what I just had to say. But obviously you can spec a Accent with these features. You can get remote entry, you can get cruise control, you can get all those goodies in the car, just as optional extras, of course. But what is weird is, for what you don't get and what you'd expect to be a commonality in this segment, you do get in features that you wouldn't expect to see in this segment. For example, this base model car has an auto-dimming day-night mirror with garage access and a compass. Now, a lot of cars in this class don't even have that as an option, but this car has it standard. Another thing that's interesting is the fact that you have XM radio as standard. Now, I mean, nowadays that's more common, but back in 2012, for a car in this price point, that is normally something that you would expect to see as an optional extra, and here it's standard, which is actually pretty interesting. But other than that, the interior of this car feels huge. It honestly has a lot of volume. I'm sitting right now, I'm 6'2", tons of headroom, tons of legroom in the front seat. In the back seat, there's actually tons of legroom and tons of headroom. You can easily fit 4 people in this car comfortably with no worries whatsoever. We've taken it on long trips with all 4 of us in here, and it's been fine. Now, the quality of the interior, the dashboard is very nicely styled. The everything is bolted down well. All the plastics, they have a very nice grain to them, so it doesn't feel cheap at all, even though it's like a $14,000, $15,000 car. The whole dashboard has these very cool two-tone designs going on. You have a dark gray upper dash, and in this car, since we have the beige seats, you have a beige lower color that you have in the door panels as well. You have this very nice beige and white, almost like a quilted design on the inserts here, and that carries through to the seats. And obviously, it's very bright in here because you have a lot of glass space. It's very easy to see out of, and it's overall very nice, usable interior. And the other thing I love is that this car just feels so like it's at a much higher caliber than most cars in this class in terms of the build quality, because everything is super well screwed down. Everything looks nice. Nothing in here feels cheap, even though it's an inexpensive car. Yes, it's plastics and whatnot, but they're nice plastics. They're not scratchy, crappy plastics. They're very nice. Nothing rattles. That's something I want to accentuate here. So my Focus, it's stickered at twice the price of this car, But when I go over a bump, I'll get a rattle in like a door panel or in the dashboard or something. Nothing like that in this car. It is very well built, and that's something you're going to appreciate when you buy a car in this price point, because you're getting a product that's actually a lot nicer than you might expect. Now, one thing that is a letdown in this interior are the seats. Now, you can't get leather seats in this car. You only get the stock cloth seats. Obviously, you can change the colors of those between gray and beige. But these seats here, they're not the most supportive. They don't have a lot of thigh support, and they're honestly quite hard. So on a long trip, it's very easy to get sore in them. For short stints around town, you're fine. But on anything longer than like an hour or so, they become quite uncomfortable. So, to sum up, basically, the way this car makes me feel, honestly, it's a cheap car, and it doesn't feel like a cheap car, which is kind of the whole appeal of it. So you're getting a product that isn't very expensive, but you're getting, in the long run, something that's going to hold up well and obviously just make you feel like you're driving a more premium product than you actually are. And because of that, I really like the Accent. I like it so much, actually, that when my old car died, I was seriously considering looking into getting one of these for myself. So because of that, I just feel like this car, just because it's so well built, it gets great fuel economy, and it drives really well, it just seems that all those traits give it a personality that makes me excited when I get in the car to go drive it. Obviously, like, I'm not gonna be like, oh yeah, I get to go drive the Accent today. Oh yeah, this is like the best day ever. I'm gonna have so much fun. It's obviously not like that, but it's one of those cars that once you get out of, you're gonna look back at it just because it surprises you with just how good it is for the price and what you were expecting in the first place. So that's where this car really comes in. It's the element of surprise that you get with this car when you realize, just like, damn, that's a pretty good car. Now, there have been a couple minor issues with this car. Obviously, this has the 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty from Hyundai, which remediates a lot of those issues, but we have only had like 2 issues with it. One issue is that the starter motor, one of the bolts on the motor itself, actually came loose, and the car wouldn't start on occasion as a result of that, which was kind of annoying. We actually had to get it towed once as a result of that issue. And then the other issue was the door locks. Since you don't have wireless door locks, you actually have to stick the key in. Sometimes when it's cold, they will freeze up, which kind of sucks because then you can't get in your car unless you melt the ice off of the door lock. And then lastly, the cigarette lighter recently decided to stop working. Overall, it's a great car. I would definitely go and look at one if you're in the market for a subcompact car. And as always, I hope you tune in for more Motor Minds when you are looking at buying a new car. If you're just looking at anything car related, or you just want to see me yammer on for 15 minutes about anything I'm driving. So, of course, check us out. Like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Check out MotorMindsProductions.com, and I hope to see you watching our next episode.